The sky hung heavy, gray, and twitching with storm, over a town that time had almost forgotten. Rain hammered the wooden streets, pooling in crooked gutters, carrying the scent of wet hay and distant smoke. A lone rider tore through the storm, boots caked in mud, coat plastered to his back, eyes haunted like he'd seen the edge of hell, and walked away only to carry it inside him. He pulled up outside a shuttered saloon, the boards rattling against the wind, and dismounted with a grunt, each step deliberate, slow, weighted. Inside, a woman paced like a caged wolf, sharp eyes glinting under the flicker of lightning. Her jaw tightened, fists clenched, heart hammering against the ribs that had learned too much pain. She stopped, pointing at him, voice trembling, deadly in its clarity. "You paid for me. Now finish it." The words struck harder than thunder, slicing through the storm's roar. Eli's hands shook, a subtle limp pulling at his gait. Every scar on his arms, every ache in his back, whispered memories of old fights, old debts. Fear, guilt, and the heavy price of choices he'd buried collided inside him. The townsfolk shifted behind windows and corners, whispers curling around his name. A man bought, a price unpaid, a danger unresolved. He swallowed the bitter taste of rain and smoke. The wind carried the scent of gunpowder and damp leather as the woman stepped closer. Her eyes dared him to fail, to falter. Could someone truly pay for another human's fate and face what comes next? Eli's breath hitched. Every pulse screamed, "This is your line. Cross it or break." What do you want from me?" he rasped. "Everything," she said. Thunder rolled, a drumbeat of reckoning. Horses stamped nervously in the streets. The storm waited, patient, while the choice dangled between them. What line would you cross to save a life? Like if you'd stand your ground and subscribe for the next storm that's coming. Share if this redemption moved you, because the night is just beginning. Rain slackened to a drizzle, mist curling over the streets like smoke from old grudges. Eli's eyes traced the shadows of the alleys, each puddle reflecting fragments of a past that refused to let him go. Orphaned at 10, he'd learned hunger as a teacher, cold as a mentor, and violence as a language. Winters had scarred his hands, and years of surviving by stealing or shooting had carved lines of guilt and caution deep into his face. Every whispered tavern tale, every splash of rain against worn leather, tugged at memories of the man who sold Clara, the price paid, the promise he'd made that now felt heavier than any storm. Clara moved like a whisper herself, hands brushing against shuttered walls, eyes scanning every corner. Fire had stolen her family, maybe spared her by chance, or betrayal. Every glance, every clipped word was armor forged in loss. The distance between her and Eli pulsed with tension, each step forward a test of fragile trust. "We can't keep circling," she said, voice low, trembling like dry grass in wind. "I promised," Eli replied, jaw tight, "and I'll see it through." They navigated the town's narrow alleys, floorboards creaking under their careful steps, mud sucking at their boots. The ledger awaited, the proof of her suffering, the key to confronting the man who orchestrated it all. Moral lines blurred with each step. Could Eli uphold a promise he'd never fully understood? And at what cost to his soul? Fog thickened, whispers of townsfolk curling through the streets like smoke. Every glance over the shoulder carried threat, every heartbeat a drum counting down to confrontation. What would you risk to keep a promise that could destroy you? Hit subscribe if you're ready for the reckoning that's coming. Share if this journey of survival and redemption pulled at your heart, because the night isn't done testing them yet. Shadows lengthened across the ridge, wind slicing through the gaps in the fortified cabin walls like cold knives. Eli crouched low, teeth gritted, eyes tracing the smoke curling from chimneys, heart thudding, every breath sharp with rain-slick air. The man who'd orchestrated Clara's suffering, wealthy, cruel, untouchable, was just beyond reach, and Clara's trust trembled at the edge of fear. A rustle, then gunfire erupted. Mud flew as hired guns charged, shouting and shooting. Screams ricocheted off wooden walls. Eli dove behind a tree, fingers tight on his revolver, mind racing. Bullets chewed through air, hearts pounded, and suddenly, a child ran into the crossfire, eyes wide, innocence exposed. Eli froze. Vengeance or mercy? Every instinct screamed one thing, his conscience another. "Move!" Clara hissed, grabbing his arm. "He'll kill us both if you hesitate." Eli swallowed the metallic taste of fear. Not not them. He fired, not to kill, but to protect, drawing the child from danger. Smoke stung their eyes, charred wood crumbling from a stray shot. And then, a familiar face emerged from the chaos, betrayal etched in every line, secrets spilled with each movement, twisting motivations like knives in the storm. Clara's past slammed into Eli's choices, morality writhing in every shot fired, every step taken through the mud-soaked battlefield. What would you do in that split second? Act for vengeance or spare innocence? Like if courage means restraint, and subscribe to see how far their fight will go. The ridge grew silent, rain dripping on shattered boards. Their eyes met, unspoken questions lingering. Share if this gut-wrenching choice pulled at you, because the storm isn't done yet. The storm hit like a living thing, rain hammering the cabin roof, wind rattling every shutter and board. Eli slipped through shadows, mud sucking at his boots, heart pounding with the weight of promises. Clara crouched behind a cracked wall, eyes wide, listening as he confronted the man who had sold her, words sharp, cold, rising into threats, betrayal spilling like spilled whiskey. "Let her go," Eli growled, voice raw, trembling. "You think you can buy back what's mine?" the man sneered, holding tight to someone trembling behind him. A gunshot shattered the tense silence. The man fell, but not before dragging a loved one into the chaos, hostage against Eli's promise. Clara screamed, the sound sharp against the storm, mud and blood mixing underfoot. Every flash of lightning lit Eli's face, hard, broken, unraveling under the impossible choice laid bare before him. Rain stung his eyes. Firelight flickered across walls warped by the storm. The moral lines stretched thin. Save one, risk losing another, or fail both to remain just. Heart thrumming, muscles tight, every breath a struggle. He felt the weight of every decision he'd ever made. "Eli, what do we do?" Clara's voice trembled, a dagger through the tension. The wind tore at the curtains, lightning exposing terror-stricken faces, shadows twisting across the floor. Outside, the storm mirrored inner chaos, thrumming with rage and fear. What would you risk to honor a promise when every option bleeds loss? Like if you'd choose courage over certainty, and subscribe for the reckoning coming next. Share if this gut-pulling choice haunted you, because the night has just begun, and hope fractures before the final storm. The storm hit like a living thing, rain hammering the cabin roof, wind rattling every shutter and board. Eli slipped through shadows, mud sucking at his boots, heart pounding with the weight of promises. Clara crouched behind a cracked wall, eyes wide, listening as he confronted the man who'd sold her, words sharp, cold, rising into threats, betrayal spilling like spilled whiskey. "Let her go," Eli growled, voice raw, trembling. "You think you can buy back what's mine?" the man sneered, holding tight to someone trembling behind him. A gunshot shattered the tense silence. The man fell, but not before dragging a loved one into the chaos, hostage against Eli's promise. Clara screamed, the sound sharp against the storm, mud and blood mixing underfoot. Every flash of lightning lit Eli's face, hard, broken, unraveling under the impossible choice laid bare before him. Rain stung his eyes. Firelight flickered across walls warped by the storm. The moral lines stretched thin. Save one, risk losing another, or fail both to remain just. Heart thrumming, muscles tight, every breath a struggle, he felt the weight of every decision he'd ever made. "Eli, what do we do?" Clara's voice trembled, a dagger through the tension. The wind tore at the curtains, lightning exposing terror-stricken faces, shadows twisting across the floor. Outside, the storm mirrored inner chaos, thrumming with rage and fear. What would you risk to honor a promise? See, when every option bleeds loss? Like if you'd choose courage over certainty, and subscribe for the reckoning coming next. Share if this gut-pulling choice haunted you, because the night has just begun, and hope fractures before the final storm. Dawn cracked across the frozen creek, pale light bouncing off brittle ice that groaned beneath each cautious step. Breath curled in the icy air, rifles raised, hearts hammering like wild drums. Eli's eyes scanned the landscape, harsh, unyielding, every shadow a threat. Clara's limbs trembled, but she stepped forward, chest rising, jaw set. She wasn't running from the past anymore. She was confronting it. "Stay close," Eli muttered, voice low but steady, as frost stung his cheeks. I'm not hiding, Clara replied, eyes burning with a quiet fire. The first shot split the morning, echoing against frozen banks. Gunfire and screams tangled with the hiss of wind over ice. Each movement, each breath, was weighted with the knowledge that one mistake could cost everything. Eli's mind raced, calculating, balancing his promise to Clara, the threat of betrayal, the lives depending on his choices. A sudden figure emerged from cover, an enemy pleading, voice cracking. Eli froze. Mercy or vengeance? Every instinct demanded action, but the heart argued differently. Could showing mercy be as brave as taking revenge? Could love endure a world this brutal? Clara's eyes found his, trust hanging on a knife's edge. Twigs snapped under boots. Frostbitten fingers clenched rifles. Each heartbeat counted, each choice pressing against the fragile hope they carried. The wind whipped torn banners along the creek, mingling with gunpowder and frozen breath. Eli lowered his gun just slightly. "Go! Run! Live!" he whispered, and the enemy stumbled back, confusion and relief etched across his face. Clara exhaled, trembling, then gripped his arm. "Could you spare someone who deserved none? Could you face the cost of mercy? Like if you'd stand your ground and subscribe to see how their story closes." The creek lay silent now, frost glinting under a rising sun. Triumph mixed with loss, hearts heavy but unbroken. Share if this redemption stirred something deep, because even in brutality, courage can survive. Morning light crept over frost-dusted streets, slipping between broken fences and charred timbers like hesitant hope. The storm had passed, leaving silence thick and heavy, broken only by distant church bells and the whisper of wind through broken shutters. Eli's boots crunched on icy earth as he moved toward his horse, muscles stiff, mind tangled with every choice that had cost them blood and innocence. Clara knelt beside a shallow fire, tending to wounds both seen and unseen, mud-streaked hands pressed against ragged cloth, eyes distant, yet burning with survival. "We made it," she said, voice low, trembling but steady. Eli exhaled, a slow release of tension he hadn't realized he had held. "Yeah, but at what cost?" His gaze lingered on the horizon, the weight of promises kept and debts paid pressing into his spine. Whispers threaded through the town, tales of courage and vengeance, but they could never touch the private scars etched deep into Eli and Clara. The past clung like smoke above charred wood, and freedom tasted bitter with the memories of lives lost, choices made. A soft wind carried the smell of wet earth, mingling with gunpowder and frost. Clara stood, brushing mud from her coat, eyes meeting his for a lingering moment. "You going?" Eli nodded, hand on the saddle. "Some ghosts. We ride with them alone. Could we live? With the ghosts of our choices, even when we do right by others. Like if you'd stand and face what you must, and subscribe to follow the journey beyond the dust." They parted quietly, steps crunching against frost, hearts heavy yet alive. Small victories and quiet grief intertwined, a reminder that courage and morality rarely arrive unscathed. Share if this story of fire, betrayal, and redemption stayed with you, because the West never forgives easily, but it honors those who endure.